All right. All right, Kristina. Well, thanks for joining me. Appreciate you being here.
Happy to be
How are
here.
you doing? How are you doing right now? And it's before you get into that, it's funny because I've watched so much of your content and like you're constantly on these IG like Instagram lives and doing all these videos. So I feel like I'm caught up on your life and what you're doing. But who knows? I mean, things change day to day, and I'm sure whoever's listening and watching this is curious how you're doing during these times.
I of course know that there are a lot of people who are struggling and experiencing hardship. So I want to have awareness and compassion for that. Personally, my experience hasn't really been affected that much. But that being said, I also don't really hang out in my mind a lot. So I'm not really someone who gets stressed or gets worried to begin with, just because I'm really about being here in this moment and existing beyond that space of thought. So I try to bring that into everything that I do and teach that, because I know a lot of people, like I said, are having a really hard time right now since there is a lot of uncertainty. But at the same time, like, everything is always uncertain. And so I think this is a really
Mm,
beautiful experience for a
mm,
lot of people to awaken to that.
right. And when you say that you don't spend much time in your mind and in your thoughts, this is how, I guess, how much time do you spend like lost in thought? If you could put a number to it of like of minutes, and I'm sure it's always changing, like, some thought patterns might be stronger than others. But yeah, I'm curious, like, where at what point you've taken your practice to.
um, I pretty much don't have any thoughts and I don't spend any
Wow.
time in my mind at all. But that was not always the case. Pretty much exact opposite. I had a really, really loud mind, and it was very overwhelming. It was really heavy with a lot of deep trauma and a lot of painful events. So that actually was what sort of inspired me to awaken to this point, because I wanted to be free and started to realize, like, wow, holy shit, this is really loud. This is nonstop. I'm waking up at 5 in the morning to pee, and my brain's already spinning its tails and going in its loops. So I definitely did not like come to this planet in this
Mm.
space. And it's something that's taken me probably 5 years of really consistent, persistent work to be able to now enjoy and reap the benefits of learning how to be still within my mind.
Wow. Yeah, okay. This is good. I want to take a step back and kind of introduce you, I guess, like, to the audience, to whoever's listening. I mean, I found you through Instagram, Kristina, and I actually found you through, I follow Krishnamurti on Instagram. I saw you had commented on one of his, I don't remember the exact post that he had, but I remember your answer was especially um, valuable. And so I found you through that. And yeah, I guess that's how I connected with you and started looking through kind of the content you're posting, and just really resonated with the way that you communicate about
Oh,
this subject and like this work. Um, so yeah, so some contextual background for who's
I
ever
love
listening.
that. I love
Yeah,
that.
me too. And so yeah, so you said 5 years ago is kind of when this started. Like, what got you into, like, what spurred that desire to, I guess, become enlightened, or to pursue enlightenment, or to pursue awakening, however you want to to phrase it. Like, what started that for you?
Yeah. Well, like a lot of people in this space, I think before I had that realization, I was practicing a lot of things on the level of form. So I was journaling, doing affirmations, mantras, all that sort of stuff. And for me personally, I never felt like that really shifted anything. I felt like I was just kind of spinning my wheels and, getting myself deeper into illusion and identifying with ego, because I was constantly carrying these things and thinking, how can I heal from this? How can I let it go? And I kind of had this realization, like, there's nothing to let go there. It's not happening anymore. It hasn't been happening for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the event was that my mind had made so important. So I started having that realization that what I was doing wasn't helping me evolve. It was just kind of creating new forms for me to get attached to and identify with. So it wasn't like a black and white decision, but it was sort of an awareness I had in the background. And then my mom died about 5 years ago, and it was obviously an extremely intense and painful experience. And I had signed up to go on a Vipassana retreat. I don't know if you know
Right.
about it. Yeah. So it's
Yep.
10-day silent meditation. Knew nothing about it other than that they said, like, it's doing surgery on yourself without anesthesia. And I was like, I am so in. Um, it was extremely challenging, but it was the first time I ever heard my mind. So if you had asked me before that, what kind of thoughts are you having? I wouldn't have known because I was so deep in them that I thought I was thinking them. So that was a really powerful awakening for me where I was like, oh, I can hear my mind, and it's very loud and it's very repetitive and it's spewing up all of these painful memories. So I actually left the retreat 5 days early because it was just absolutely wild for me. And I was like, I don't want to
Wow.
do this. Yeah,
They
it
don't
was
want you
nuts.
to leave either. They want
No,
you to
they
stay.
don't. They
Yeah.
sure don't. They were
So
like,
they,
you'll never be free. And I was like, well, this is a cult if you're telling me this is the only way to be free. So it kind of set me on my own journey to
mm,
become aware of my mind. And I really became super committed to finding that space between thoughts, which is eventually what helped me to get to this point. Up until then, it was just being still within the noise, trying to be silent, trying to allow all of this to exist, which was really impossible not to get reactive energetically. But once I found the space, I was like, oh, yes.
mm,
And it all really changed from there.
mm. Did you go back to another course after that, or did you just kind of embark on your own individual
Yeah.
type
No,
journey?
I didn't
Yeah,
go back.
that's crazy.
And they have
Yeah, you
great
got what you
stuff,
needed.
but and I think it'd be really cool to do it now. I don't really need to do it. So I feel like 10 days is a long freaking time. Like 5 days, sure. 10 days, not being able to look anyone in the eyes, not being able
Mm,
to read anything or watch anything. Like, I just feel like where I am now, I live in silence. So I wouldn't need that. And it would be too
mm,
extreme in a sense, but it was really beautiful. And it showed me how so many people are in suffering because of their minds. Like, I just watched a room full of 50 adults crying and screaming and making all sorts of noises, just sitting in silence from whatever was happening internally.
mm.
And that was huge for me because, again, I had never heard my mind. So I was like, wow, what is this? How did I never know this was a thing until?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like once you do, it's unconscious, conscious, it's, or what is it? Unconscious incompetence. It's like the first stage of like competency, developing competency. So yeah, if we don't even know, if we're not aware of these things that are going on, then um okay, yeah, this is, I didn't know you had even gone to even if it was 5 days of a Vipassana retreat, because that's how I started out in
Oh.
regards to like, I guess, getting involved in meditative work and the pursuit of enlightenment. I attended quite a few courses, and then I started realizing like, okay, this is just a technique. This is just a path, and there's many paths you can take to get to the same destination. Um, and yeah, kind of, I feel like I resonate with that idea of wanting just to pursue things on your own, in your own accord, and not, and I guess like not separating between like the monastic life and the mundane life, wanting to like blend the two. Like, is that how you see your life currently unfolding, is like a blend between the two worlds?
Hmm. I don't really think about it, to be honest.
Right.
Um, I mean, I yeah, I guess maybe if I had thought about it, I would think about it that way because I still participate in many things on the level of form in the physical world. Like, I'm a TV producer, I write TV, I have a business, I'm writing a book. So there are a lot of things. Oh, about to launch a CBD company. Like I have a lot of different things going on, but I don't identify with any of them in the sense that I need them or imagine that they're going to last, fulfill me, or make me happy. So I'm not attached to them. I'm sort of playing with them. And I don't think about them. I'm just doing what's necessary in that moment to move them forward. So I think I have a different relationship with things that I do now because I don't need them, where before I was operating unconsciously from this psychological idea that I needed to arrive or become something. So I had dreams and goals, quote unquote, that weren't things that I just wanted to play with and experience while in this body, but that I sort of desperately needed to feel like I was somebody. So I think now it's a lot more playful in that sense where, um, yeah, I have a lot of moments where I'm just sitting on the couch breathing and looking around, but I also have moments where I'm busy with clients and calls and on meetings and stuff. So I think it is sort of a blend in that way. Yeah.
Hmm. So to get to this point where you feel as if your mind is entirely silent, was this a gradual process, or were there mini awakenings along the way where it was like, oh, it's like way quieter now?
People ask all the time if there was like something that happened that, I mean, besides what I just shared about my mom, that was like the onset, but was there an
Hmm.
awakening where all of a sudden everything was different? And I like to say, yeah, there were many awakenings and none of them lasted because until you really are able to have that relationship with your mind of separation, not much is actually changing. It's very superficial. So for me, it was something I had to really, 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 really work at. I wasn't as lucky as Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie to just wake up one day and be free of thought. Like I love that that happened to them, but that did not happen to me. So I
Hmm.
definitely fantasized about having a quiet mind. I thought that was the goal. But I found peace long before my mind fell silent by being still within it and looking for the space between thoughts. So, like a moment that I had in 2015 when I first heard that space, I was like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. Like, and I realized on a deep level that nothing that is happening in the external world is bothering me. It's just the thoughts that I'm having a hard time kind of creating that space around. So that for me was kind of like a high that got me through all of it, where I was like, I'm going to look for the space. There's a space and that's me. And I felt it and it's amazing. And I'm going to keep looking for it. And the more that I sort of looked for it, the more it expanded. And the more it expanded, the more I wanted to stay there naturally. So then it sort of became my home where then thoughts came, but I was no longer interested in them because I was too busy being in that space. So thoughts kind of dissolve when you no longer give them your energy. And we give them our energy because we believe that they're personal, have something to do with us, we're interested in them. But I stopped becoming interested in them because I was kind of like, hey man, I'm over here in the present moment. Like I don't want to go into whatever that story is. And so they kind of just stopped coming. But I couldn't tell you when it happened, which is crazy because you'd think from being so deep in that practice that I'd be like, it was February 1st, 2000, whatever. Like, I have no idea. It just kind of naturally became that way because I stopped feeding into illusion.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, it's very inspiring. um, yeah, it's funny. Like you recently posted about just this idea of like judging. I think it's quite common for a lot of people to judge where we're at in this process. And I know I'm experiencing that, like, oh, wanting to be farther ahead. But then, like, obviously, I see that there's nowhere to go, like,
Yeah.
there is no ahead, there is no behind there. It's just is what it is. And like, is this your perspective as well? Like, we can awaken, we can be enlightened in this very moment. And that's all there is this moment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm curious, like, how you, yeah, well, I guess if your mind's quiet, it's like the future and the past are intertwined in some crazy ways with the present moment, that we can resolve things that happened in the past through the present. We can imagine and envision things that happened in the future in the present. And yeah, I'm wondering if you deal with any of that work. Like, I mean, I imagine being a relationship coach, things, and in your own, in being in a relationship, not only with yourself, but with others, we hold resentments against other people, whether it's unconsciously or intentionally, like we just keep feeding these resentments. And yeah, I'm wondering how you have managed dealing with resentment in general. And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it open at that. Yeah.
Resentment. I mean, I think resentment is like anything else. You witness the past arising in you in the present moment. So if you want to dissolve your conditioning and see what's going on in your mind, you have to be rooted in your body. You have to be able to be the space where you feel the sensation in your body rising before your mind labels it as an emotion and creates an unconscious story for you to identify with. So that's a really fast process. And unless you're spending time in the body, it takes you over every time. So that was my experience for about a year. I was like, I'm going to master my triggers. I'm not going to project or judge. I'm going to be clear as shit. And then I was like, damn it, how did I miss it? And it's because you really have to create that space to be able to witness it all arising. Like I said, it's a very fast process. But once it happens, I think it's important to tune into your body and to kind of look like, oh, there's tightness in my body. I'm closing off. There must be a mental narrative I'm identifying with. So I don't look at each relationship or situation as like, what am I resenting or what am I holding on to? But I just look at what's showing up in my body and how is that a reflection of what may be going on in my mind that I've identified with. And sometimes, relationships are beautiful for that reason, because you don't know that you're carrying a story in your mind until something happens and you're able to kind of look at it like, I guess I'm feeling this way. I guess I was having this thought. And so it really is a beautiful mirror to kind of see what is going on in those moments, because I talk about mental narratives a lot, but it doesn't always mean the thoughts you hear in your mind. Sometimes it's the thoughts that are unconsciously arising that we become and then act out. So I think creating that space and getting curious about your reaction to something can really show your level of consciousness and the inner workings of your mind in that
I like that. And so this is I guess your practice, and the practice that you recommend to others is kind of like this Vipassana style coming back to the body. So whenever, thoughts arise, we get lost in mental narratives, we get lost in ego, and connecting to thought, to form, just return to the body. And I guess my question would be then, how does one be careful and be aware that they're not then identifying with the body?
So there's a huge difference between feeling your feelings and becoming them. So, and I think that's something that most people would say, oh, I understand. And then when I talk about it, they're like, wait, what? It's sort of like, I'm not teaching people to be robots, but there is a huge difference between identifying with something and allowing it to be. So when a sensation arises, I feel it fully. I go into it, but I create that space so I'm not identifying with what the thought is about that emotion or that sensation. Because once I do that, then it's elongating it and it's creating it in my body, and it's also triggering that story. So you're not really identifying with the feeling if you're going in to feel it in your body. You're allowing it to be and releasing it. But if you're not able to stay present and actually be there to feel it, that's what most people would say they're feeling their feelings, but they're actually not feeling their feelings. They're feeling what their mind thinks about that sensation. So it's very different.
It's tricky. Yeah.
It's very different. Where I've had a lot of people like, I want to feel my feelings. I want to be sad. I want to be angry. And I'm like, you're not feeling those feelings. You're feeling the mental narrative's interpretation of that neutral sensation. And then you're creating suffering. So you're actually not feeling it, and you're not allowing yourself to allow it to be there. And then you're not creating space and freedom around it. So it's a really sort of loopy way that the ego kind of keeps you stuck in the mind when you say, I just want to feel my feelings. I feel this way. And it's like, well, you don't feel that way, actually. It's your
Mm,
conditioned bundle of reflexes sort of vibrating that back to what your patterns and your programming is.
right. Right. Okay. Yeah, the label, like the label, I'm labeling the feelings and then reacting to those as opposed to just feeling rather than labeling, becoming. Okay, cool. That's great. Thank you for that. Um, yeah, let's see. I guess one thing that I thought was very interesting was before we had even hopped on this call and our back and forth that we were going through, just like chatting via the Instagram app. You mentioned that you have an alien friend. So I think this is very important that we bring this up for everyone because if you have an alien friend that you're hiding from us, I think we need to know about
um, yeah, his name is Eric. He, I would not be here without him.
it. Hmm.
Absolutely not. 100%. It's really hard to describe him. He's very intuitive. And he wouldn't say he's psychic because he's like, the future isn't written. There is nothing to really know, but he's fabulous at picking up on how you feel about things, explaining other people's thought processes and energies. He also does a lot of like far out stuff. Like he has helped my brother's girlfriend like clear an old Civil War spirit that was living in her body, and when he cleared it she stopped fainting like all of these years that she'd been fainting like every year since she lived in that house. And he's like helped me
Damn.
communicate with some of my friends who have passed. Like he's also very great at being like, did you have a banana this morning? I think it's bad for your stomach, you should take this. Like he's so he's so crazy cool. But
Wow.
he, yeah, I know, I'm so in love with
I
him.
want a friend like that.
Yeah, I'll connect you. He's so great. He but yeah, he's helped me so much on my journey where he really is like my personal Eckhart Tolle. And
Hmm.
he's very compassionate and loving and kind, but he's also like no bullshit, call you out, show you what you're projecting, and he pushes you. And I think because I was so deeply attached to all of my narratives and my identity that on some level I was terrified to work with him, but on another level, like behind all of that was like, you need this, this is right for you. And yeah, he's helped me so much. So much. He doesn't have like, he has an Instagram, but he doesn't teach this stuff. He only takes personal clients because he's like, I don't want to deal with all the internet people asking me questions, calling me crazy, having to respond to everyone. So he's like, you do it, share what I've taught you, you can be the face.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's just like a
So
normal guy.
okay. So he hasn't
Yeah.
like taken his skin mask off yet to reveal like this alien predator face.
Not yet. But now that I mean, I can just tell he's not. He looks like such a simple human that you're like, there's gotta be something else. Because you know, he doesn't wear the yoga beads and he doesn't like, I don't know, live by mantras or have like a, you know, like a
Right.
yin yang sign on his Instagram or anything. Like he's very like just plain t-shirt, jeans and sneakers kind of guy that you'd see at a restaurant and wouldn't even think like, holy shit, this guy can read my mind and clear demons and stuff. He's wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Maybe we'll connect. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, yeah, Christina, I'm curious how you got involved in coaching in, I guess, relationship work. And I think it's cool. I like what you do. Not that you need my approval or anything, but I like it because it's not just you know, it's relationships with others, but more so it seems like it's relationship with oneself and
Hmm.
the way we relate to what arises, basically like thought with sensation with form. And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering how it's funny, I feel like you're a bit of a mystery to me in the sense that like if I ask you a question you might just respond with like, yeah, I just felt it, like I didn't think about it at all, it just happened. It just like arose, which
Okay.
is
Wow.
fine.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how you like what inspired you to
All
get
right, I'll give you a
involved
more
in that?
solid answer. That probably would have been my answer, honestly, because it was like that. But at the same
Right.
time, I personally had a lot of non-relationships in my life. The relationship I'm in right now is actually the first one I've ever really been in. Um, but anyway, I'll get to that later. So I had a lot of non-relationships that I noticed. I had a really wild experience, which is like a way longer story than I can explain. But basically, this person was like the Russian nesting doll of all of my non-relationship relationships. So I had that experience and was like, oh, holy shit, this is like a deep, dark manifestation of all of my conditioning and patterns that made me look at everything like, probably not a coincidence that the past 3 guys I've been into have been ex-heroin addicts who were in love with their ex-girlfriend who looked like me. Like, it was very specific, and it really kind of caused me to become curious of my own patterns and tendencies, and to use that in my awakening. So I became interested in relationships because that was a huge part of it. And my partner and I now have been dating for over 2 years, but we've been best friends for 10 years. And so I kind of entered the relationship thinking like, I learned all the stuff, I did all the things, and then like went through a whole new awakening with him to get to this place where I am now. So
Mm,
I started this business, yes, as a feeling of kind of a moment inspiration of, I've been living and sharing and teaching this with my friends and helping them. But also, kind of honestly using like relationship as a shiny object to get people to evolve, because I didn't personally feel like if I was like, hey, evolve and expand your current level of consciousness to grow beyond your human identity, that people would be like, yeah. People really, I kind of do that, like, tricked you. You thought you were just
yeah.
here to expand your relationships. But so it is beautiful for that way, because
Mm,
it's about so much more than just your intimate relationships. It is how you relate to your thoughts and your emotions and objects and people. And so, yes, relationships change. And yes, you can use relationships to see your patterns, because I think people are relatively aware of their shit, so to speak, when it comes to relationships. So I kind of felt like that was a perfect blend from my own experience and from what's really helpful as like not a marketable thing, but like a tangible thing. So it was more like, my relationship will transform through this work. But yeah, that's the beautiful part, is when so many of my clients are like, oh my God, this isn't really about my relationship, is it? And I'm like, no, it's not. But it's cool how your
it's about
relationship is
you.
changing. Yeah. Sorry. I know you didn't want to look at your stuff, but
I know you
it's
didn't want
great.
to change, but
Yeah. But you did.
uh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like maybe I think that's one of the reasons that I've resonated with you as well, is that like you have had similar my relationships haven't been with ex-heroin addicts and whatnot. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, and I'm glad you've transcended that. That could have, who knows where that could have gone. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll leave that for another time. But
The universe wanted me to evolve through that. That was that experience I had. That was like
yeah.
a giant mirror. And I was like,
Well,
oh,
and it gave
whoa.
you, it's like it, yeah. Well, it's like it gave you something so extreme that your evolution had to be equally as extreme, almost, like if you
Yeah.
wanted to transcend that. Um, but yeah, I don't know if we all go through this, but this is something that I'm going through as well, is, just being in cycles with relationships. And I would also call them non-relationships, like very non-committal, but like romantic at the same time. And I'm beginning to identify kind of where I'm falling short, what my habit patterns are. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, with in regards to truth telling and being in truth with your partner. And because I think there's multiple ways to look at this. Like there's this idea of pick your own battles when it comes to truth telling. And it might not be the best strategy to just like bring up all these faults that you see in this person and whatnot.
That
Um,
kind of truth telling.
right. Yeah. So I'm getting there. And so I guess that's like one strategy. And then I don't know, I've really been benefiting recently from just like being completely open, like whatever my resentments are, whatever my reasons for not fully committing to a relationship are, like really being open and honest with the other person about that thing or those multiple things, and seeing how I tell these stories in my mind, like how I've been conditioned into a certain pattern and narrative about what I think my life would look like and who my partner would be and all this crazy stuff that it's like so far from reality. And yeah, it's just like coming back to that. And so I'm curious what your experiences have been with similar, I guess, type people, or if you've dealt with um, this like this feeling that yeah, that it's important to be open and honest with everything, or it's like, should we be picking and choosing our battles?
Mm.
Kind of a sloppy question, but we'll let it slide.
um, well, I feel like you know what I'm going to say. I just feel things in the moment. I don't really create
Mm,
rules, because then I'm living and
mm,
operating from my mind. So I kind of feel it out. Is now the moment to have a conversation? Do I feel in this moment that this person would be receptive? Am
mm,
I in a place where I can speak consciously and clearly about what I'm observing and share it and invite someone to see it? Or am I being so far out of my body that I'm projecting my own story about this person and it's not going to land and going to create more tension? And of course, you can't control other people's level of consciousness or perception or triggers. But I think it's creating that space to feel into that moment if that's right for you. And so,
mm.
like I had an experience with my partner. Like I said, we're starting our own CBD company. And I felt a little uncomfortable telling him that I wanted to try somebody else's CBD. But I also felt it would have been more uncomfortable if he just saw me opening the package. It would have been like, the hell, we're literally trying a competitor. But I just was curious. And so I shared, and I kind of, in my body, hey, there's something I want to share. I'm not sure how you'll receive it. Is now
Mm.
a moment that we can talk? Are you open? Are you feeling comfortable or feeling uncomfortable with me even saying that? So I kind of feel into what it is. And, most people, when they hear something like that, are like, oh God, oh God, oh God. But I kind of, know his energy better. So I can feel like, he's not really in the space now. So I think in cultivating more presence, you kind of become more aware of your own energy and somebody else's energy, where you can kind of feel into what's quote unquote appropriate for this current moment.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's genius. Thank you, Kristina. Genius. Yeah, I'm curious, like, how's that been? How's starting the company been, especially with, I guess, the added complexities of having your partner, someone who you're romantically involved with, as a business partner, and like dealing with money and finances and all this.
Yeah, well, he has done a lot more of it than I have. I've sort of like joined to help with like creative development, and like we're kind of joining hands on the marketing side in that sense. But I introduced him to the product and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to do our own thing," and then kind of decided he wanted to make our own strains. And so he kind of was the one that birthed that idea, and we have sort of been working intermittently together. But that being
Mm,
said, like we're also creating a conscious communication course, and we invest together as well. So like in the beginning of our relationship, I wasn't working for 8 months and he paid for absolutely all of my bills and took me on vacation for 6 months. So we started this relationship very much like we're adults who talk about money. And I was like, whoa, I'm not ready for that. So he really helped me to kind of move through that, where now we can kind of operate on that level. We're ultimately like, we are partners. We have been, like I said, we've been best friends for 12 years now. So there's always been that sort of energy of like, we do everything together, we face everything together. And, you know, being in a romantic relationship is very different than a friendship. I learned. I did not think it would be that different. I was like, you just had in sex, right? But like, no, it's very different. So there was a whole new level of things that came up with that. Like I said, I never knew that the money thing would be something, or working together. They are their own dynamics. But I think because we have that solid friendship basis, that those are sort of easier for us to kind of like interplay off of.
Right. Well, good. I'm glad it's going well, and that yeah, it's so complicated. I think you're right. Just not only romantic partnerships, but just communication in general. And it's cool that I heard on one of your other interviews that you mentioned this idea of y'all creating a conscious communications course. And I really resonate with that, because at one point, me and one of my friends were considering doing a very similar thing. And I really like this idea. I'm curious how that's unfolding for you, but I like this idea of there being no rules, in the sense that things are fluid, in the sense that things are contextual and dependent on the moment to moment basis. And what I was seeing in a lot of conscious communication models and communication models in general was just that they were like models. And so, and I guess that's all we really have to operate off of. And so, you know, this is the best we can do, is like build these models and like attempt to overlay them on top of reality and follow them as best as we can. Like, here are some examples of how to effectively communicate. But really, like, it's crazy how much of communication is rooted in consciousness, or like rooted in presence. And that really is like the foundation. And then everything else is so secondary. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, like, yeah, I'm curious how are y'all creating models around how to communicate? Are you teaching presence in this course? Well, what would that look like?
Well, I mean, it's really kind of a balance, but yeah, you're totally right. Like, I have a digital course right now that I'm like, I don't ever have to create another course again. Everything I know, share, live, and teach is in that, but I will
Yeah.
create other ones for more specific things to help people hone in on things who do want to learn more about, like changing their relationship dynamic, elevating their consciousness. But yeah, to your point, it is all about being present, because when you're present, you're able to choose your words. You're able to feel the energy of the other person. You're able to pause and kind of become curious about what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and wanting to share that, as opposed to unconsciously projecting that as truth onto the other person. So there are definitely models and things that we've created to help ourselves. But something that my partner has always shared with me that's been wildly helpful, because when I'm like in thought, I can have a very rigid mind. So he's like, we can create all these things, but you have to understand that I'm not going to get it right every time, and neither are you. It's not a failure. We're in each moment, you know, at different levels of consciousness. We're in different spaces throughout the day, and we're not robots. So it's not like, I said the thing from exercise 7. It's helpful to use as a backbone, but yeah, you do need to be present to really cultivate that. So naturally, those things kind of become your way of being, where we do have some tools that we use specifically in some areas where we notice, like, this is our pattern. Here we go. Okay, let's like help ease ourselves off of this ride. But otherwise, we kind of create these things to sort of lean on when we're having a hard time, because as present and conscious as I can be in my life and in my experience, like, relationships are a whole different ball game, where it's not just being aware of my stuff or your stuff. It's like our stuff together. It's like our relationship as a unit, is a separate object. So it sort of requires like a new level of consciousness to be able to look at it as like this tangible thing, to be able to kind of analyze and dissect these different patterns and dynamics to bring these tools into, while also knowing that I can't control him, he can't control me, and we're just doing the best we can within that current moment.
Wow.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's a worthwhile pursuit. And yeah, it's like all we got is relationships in some ways. Um, yeah, I feel like I've been asking a lot of questions, Kristina. I'm curious, just like what feels important to you these days?
Oh man. I guess like I've been learning through my own relationship about, yeah, how I was saying, like it is just so much work. And I think that people um they don't like when I say that. They're like, relationships should be easy and with the right person it should just flow. And
Mm,
yeah, on some level, but like I don't know about you, but have you ever seen the freaking human mind? Because like when two of them interact, nobody's home, like nobody's in their body. So it's like that's, I feel like I've expanded my own ability to connect with consciousness in my relationship over the years, but there are still definitely some areas where I'm like, oh, how interesting. I had a very particular thought about the way he did that, and I felt it in my body. So there's always more awareness to bring to it. And sometimes I honestly feel like it can be exhausting because I'm a very,
mm,
as you can tell, go with the flow person. And I like to be free and I like to do what I want. And I like to just be in peace. And sometimes I can find myself unconsciously projecting the idea that this would be easier if I weren't in a relationship. I wouldn't have to deal with somebody else's stuff. But
mm,
then I remember I'm consciously choosing this experience. And it's beautiful because it is really helping to sort of like sharpen my tools in a different situation where, yeah, I could be completely at peace living in the woods by myself, but like when you go into town is when all the real stuff happens, and you get to kind of bring that practice deeper and, really love someone, not just loving the idea of them, not just loving taking cute photos together and, having like Instagram worthy moments, but like being there, when shit
mm,
happens and stuff comes up, and learning how to deal with it together and to, respond to the person in a way that's necessary for where they're at. Like, especially from this work, I do something that my partner shares a lot is I'm not your client. Because I always
mm,
wanted to help show him something. And he's like, I don't want help. I want to share where I am right now. And so I have to kind of like sit back, listen, and kind of work on my own non-working on things. So it's kind of, I mean, just relationships in general can be really messy and challenging. And I think it's important to understand that that's normal and necessary if you are in a healthy relationship. So like people kind of misunderstand all the time. I get lots of haters online, like, you're blaming me for being in an abusive relationship. You're saying this is my fault. And I'm like, you can only hear what you're thinking I'm saying, but what I'm actually saying is not that. So
yeah, you're saying that. That's not me.
yeah, I'm like, I didn't say that. Can you highlight where I said that? But, you know,
mm, yeah. Yeah, it takes some serious discernment from the people involved in those relationships, and not just to take the things we hear like blindly, and try them out for ourselves, like experiment. And yeah, yeah, it's quite the journey. And I'm inspired by what you share and the work you're putting out there. I think it's really helped me, or it has helped me the last few days, just going through and not necessarily processing, but like being reminded that, oh yeah, the present moment is all I
yay.
fault myself for things that happened in the past. And it's like, let's move on from here. So yeah, I really appreciate what you're putting out there into the world.
Oh, thank
Um,
you. That
yeah, of
makes me
course.
happy.
Yeah, keep doing it. Um, I did want to ask about your your work in writing, because I'm also quite interested in writing. I've been doing some writing myself, and yeah, I feel like you mentioned it a few times on other people's videos that you're involved in TV script writing with your brother,
Hmm.
and it's still like quite the mystery to me. Like, what is it you're writing? What are you involved in?
We're writing a TV pilot, or we already wrote a TV pilot. We wrote two actually. We actually had taken the past like 6 months off. My brother was going through a breakup. And so I had kind of focused more on this. And we just sort of started getting back into it recently to develop the series Bible to like get our meetings going. But obviously they've been halted and not happening since Corona.
Mm,
People aren't really meeting with people right now. But yeah, we both work in TV. And so we actually moved here and have grown up wanting to do this, but both um, not got caught up in working in TV, but we're like, oh, the way to become TV writers is to work in Hollywood. And so we are both producers and have like crafted our path that way. And have maybe like the past year or so seriously been like, okay, yes, we do this, but we also do this. And
mm,
we've been kind of taking that more seriously and finding our flow and what specifically we want to write and create and actually like meeting with people to do that, which has been really
mm.
fun.
And are you open to sharing what the series pilots are about? Or are they kind of like a
I don't
mystery that you're like wanting to keep hidden
I don't know
because
if
they're
he
not
would
ready
be
yet?
I don't know they're done. I don't know how
Yeah.
he would feel about me sharing that though without talking to him. He's very particular about how I describe things and what I say about it. He's like, he even said when I try to explain the kind of stuff he produces, he's like, I should just give you a script because I don't really know what you're going to say and how to tell people. So, but it's comedy. We write comedy.
Cool,
And then we're
cool.
actually thinking about developing a dark comedy feature, which we've never written a feature before about our mom's death. Because we had a really like
Mm.
painful, but like a lot of funny moments where we were like going through it and we are like, let's write about this later. Like we could just tell that we are like, this is some stuff and it's kind of funny, but it was also dark and beautiful. And so I think that we're interested in kind of expanding, seeing what that looks like too.
That's exciting. I
Yeah.
I love dark comedy. So yeah, let us. Are you going to be sharing that later on, like if that comes out?
I mean, I don't really use my page to talk about my other life.
Yeah.
So probably not.
Okay.
But yeah, I've got a lot of separate worlds in different buckets here.
No, I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm interested in what do you think about narrative? And again, like I know you don't think about narrative, but like if you had to, if I for no, in regards to like, you know, I think in the meditation world, there's this idea that stories are bad or that like don't get involved in the stories of the mind and storytelling. And it does seem like it's one of the few philosophies. I mean, I guess, there's the sutras and whatnot, but it seems like the religious and scriptural texts aren't as important in the meditation world as they might be in like Christianity or Hinduism, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm wondering like the role of story and how important that is to you.
Story, are you talking about mental narratives or are you actually talking about, like you're saying, like scriptures and things?
I guess what I'm referencing your TV writing, your script writing
Oh, oh, oh.
like because this is a narrative, right? These scripts, and so I'm curious, like what a conscious, quote unquote, a conscious script looks like, or
Oh,
um,
no, none of that. None of that. Um, because it is, I mean, because we write comedy too,
okay,
like I will say it's high level comedy. Like we're both very like sharp, smart, like um high level character kind of writers.
mm,
But at the same time, like comedies are freaking stupid. Like they're the smallest thing happening that expands. You know what I mean? Like we wrote an episode of something about this guy who somebody saw his like penis in the bathroom and he said something in a different language and he didn't know what it was and it tripped him out for the whole episode and he hired a sketch artist to find the guy and like it turns out the guy said his dick was like that of a god's or something. Like we take something so small and make it a
mm,
big deal. I mean
mm.
that's what the mind does too, but it's not like very enlightened content, but it's very high level in the sense where it's character based. So like, you're not going to watch anything that I've written or read it and be like, whoa, this is some enlightened stuff. Like, it's not. But
have you seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, the show?
yeah, we actually rented a house from Larry David one time when we first moved out here. He had like a
No
rental
way.
property. Didn't meet him or anything, but
Still, that's pretty cool. No, I
yeah.
love that show. That's what I'm envisioning, like this being like, is something starts so small, like he'll just say one thing and it's like it just snowballs on him. It's
Yeah.
That's great.
It's Yeah, I think, I mean, it's interesting because I've never really thought about that before. But on one hand, in my business and the way that I am in my life, I'm really like free of narratives. And the other hand, like I write them. Um,
Right.
but I think that I just like connecting to stories on that level. And I think like I love laughing and I'm so goofy and so animated, and like my life is an improv show. Like I'd be a terrible actor, but I'm always like making up characters and skits in the moment. So I feel like it's a great channel of that energy. But then
Right.
on the other hand, like I said, then I'm nobody and nothing and I'm just breathing, driving a car. So I feel like it's a
Mm.
good outlet for that sort of part of myself. But no, it's definitely not enlightened content. It's not trying to teach anybody anything. It's just trying to make people laugh and kind of show a more deep aspect of the human experience by not being deep and connecting, like this is what it's like to be human sort of stuff.
Mm. Well, they say that comedians are the truth tellers of society in some ways. Like they're the ones who are, so long as they're doing their job properly and well, because I think there can be poor crafted jokes that kind of backfire.
Mm,
But so long as they're insightful and like aware that their comedy can, it's like impenetrable to criticism almost. Like it's, yeah, I don't know. Have you heard that idea that comedians are like the truth tellers of society?
no, I haven't.
I think it came from like the jester in the court. Like he was the one person who made fun of the king, and this has kind of evolved over time, like constantly making
Mm,
fun of the people in power, basically. Um, but yeah, obviously there can be all types of comedy. So yeah, I wish you the best in that endeavor. I think
thank
it's
you.
good to have some outlet for that creativity that you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely way too weird to not have that. I think people are really surprised when, actually, I know they are. I get so many people who are like, I don't understand how you teach and talk about this, but you also act this way, say these things, and do this stuff. And I think people have a hard time really understanding that people aren't ever just one note. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, it's like, how can you be deep and wise and also goofy and silly? And I'm like, what do you mean? What is that? Those things like
Right.
aren't allowed to exist together. So I definitely am probably a very strange brew for a lot of people. No way.
Right. No, I've felt that too. Like, people want to place things in boxes and people in boxes and really understand them. And so I thought for the longest time too, like enlightenment was like this real serious thing. And I don't know, I'm just seeing how things are not what I think they are and what my
Mm,
mental narratives tell me. Like,
always. That's like the theme of everything.
right. Well, Kristina, this has been wonderful. Yeah, I really appreciate stuff. Anything you want to share with everyone listening, or if how can people get in contact with you if they're interested?
Yeah. Do I want to share anything? You can find me on my Instagram, which is the only social media that I have. Journey to the Heart with little dots in between all the words. um, yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say anything to share is, to really start to become the witness of your thoughts is a really beautiful and powerful practice that is completely life changing, but it takes time and it takes persistence. And you don't have to wait to have a quiet mind to be free. You can cultivate that freedom within the noise. And that's honestly the deepest and truest path to doing so. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristina.
You're so
Appreciate you.
welcome. So great
Yeah.
chatting with you.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, have a great day and we'll
Thank
chat
you.
soon.
Okay, bye.
Namaste. Namaste.